get some analysis on this now with Hatem Bazian in Berkeley, California. He's a professor of Middle Eastern cultures and languages at the University of California, Berkeley. Prof, it's good to have you on TRT World. So why do you think Netanyahu presented a plan to his war cabinet, but he knows it's not going to get and hasn't got the buy-in from Palestinian groups?
Well, Netanyahu, I think, in line with previous Israeli governments, it's creating a new context and making this new context the focus of the discussions and debate. I compare it to the earlier period where creating facts on the ground in terms of settlement, in terms of these outposts, and instead of discussing the issues that were previous or prior to this, these facts on the ground becomes the focal point. So Netanyahu really issued his plan, if we might call it as a plan, in order to torpedo any type of progress that might have developed in the Paris discussions. If you recall, just before the Paris discussions, there were a meeting in Cairo, and literally Netanyahu called his representative back from Cairo and specifically sent his own advisors to make sure that there is no progress to be had. Netanyahu is intent on maintaining this approach, this military approach, because he cannot afford domestically to come out of the Gaza war and the war on the Palestinians with what he considers to be strategically empty-handed. Because one, he faces still the corruption charges. He is facing literally an instability among his coalition partner and a demand among the families of the hostages for some type of solution. So the continuation of the war is the only option that Netanyahu wants to continue with. And his right-wing, extreme right-wing, Ben Gvir, Smotrich, want to resettle back in Gaza. So that's where I see Netanyahu's action literally is to prevent an agreement on ceasefire and exchange of hostages to prisoners or Palestinian hostages to actually come forward.
But this continuation of the war is not something that many want to see continue, including his allies like the United States, who have said that the Palestinian people should have a voice and a vote about what happens in Gaza and the Palestinian territories. So how would he be taking that into account, or is he even taking that into account at all, especially when Netanyahu talks about local officials running Gaza post the war, and obviously not Hamas and not the PA? Who could he possibly be referring to?
Well, I don't know. He might have some of his own relatives that he will send to Gaza. I don't know. But Netanyahu's reading of the U.S. political landscape might be correct in the sense that he knows that the establishment Democrats, the mainstream establishment Democrats at the party, are not going to actually confront Israel. And on the other hand, he knows that he has the Republican political leadership under his literally almost under his beck and call. And as such, Biden will not challenge Netanyahu publicly. And whatever disagreements, I would say at the end of the day, especially in an election year, Biden is not ready to literally confront Israel and Netanyahu publicly. And I think in this sense, he's reading the U.S. political leadership correctly. Would there be possibly a break? I think it depends on what type of mobilization will take place here in the United States. Next week is midterm elections. We'll see what happens if Biden comes out weak in some of the states where Arab, Muslims, Palestinians, and allies are voting uncommitted on the primary election. And also we'll see whether the International Court of Justice will come up with some type of a ruling that will literally put Netanyahu and the Israeli government in untenable position. So until those two things happen, I think Netanyahu continues to work on war as the only option for him personally and for his political survival.
Hatem Bazian, very good to get your take on what's going on. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.